The long-awaited and much-hyped Moto X has now been officially unveiled. Is it here to stay, or will it soon be lost in the sea of other phones coming out? Find out in our review. Hey everybody, I'm Chris Wook. Ever since Google acquired Motorola Mobility, we've all been waiting to see what would come of it. Sure, there was that new lineup of Droid phones, but the Moto X is the first phone that Google actually had a hand in. So, how is it? Let's take a look. Taking it out of the box, there isn't a whole lot to see, just the phone, charger, and SIM removal tool. Okay, so how about those specs? The Moto X features a 4.7-inch 720p display and Motorola's X8 mobile computing system, which is comprised of a 1.7 GHz dual-core Snapdragon S4 Pro CPU, quad-core Adreno 320 GPU, and two other low-power chips that provide extra functionality. It has 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage. No microSD slot here. The Moto X features a 10-megapixel rear-facing clear pixel camera and 2-megapixel front-facing camera. Power is provided by a 2,200 mAh battery. At the press event I attended in New York, Motorola made a point of mentioning that they started with the shape of the phone and built everything else around that, from the display to the battery. They wanted to make sure they built a phone that was easy to use and comfortable to hold. I'd say they succeeded, as the phone feels very natural. Buttons are at a minimum here. On the right side, you have the power button and volume rocker. That's it. The left side of the phone holds the SIM slot, while the top is where the headphone jack is located, and the USB port is found on the bottom. The Moto X is constructed out of PET composite and has a rugged feel despite its fairly light weight. I wouldn't toss it at a wall, but it feels like it will survive an accidental drop. The 4.7-inch 720p AMOLED display in the Moto X has made a lot of people angry, specifically those who would prefer a 1080p display. It's true, we've gotten spoiled, and I'll admit even I cringe a little bit when I see anything lower, but this is a very nice display nonetheless. Around 70% of the phone's surface is screen, and the display here is both very sharp and very vivid, especially given the somewhat comparatively low pixel density. As we'll see later, this has the side effect of being very good for performance, and I would say that anyone who is disappointed in the display should take a look at the phone in person before they make up their mind for good. Of course, the major story when it comes to the display is the new active display technology, which lights up only a portion of the pixels to show you notifications. This happens when you flip the phone over, take it out of your pocket, or even when you walk up to it in some cases. It's definitely a major improvement on the now old-fashioned notification LED. In a world where worth is measured by cores and gigahertz, it's tough to gauge the Moto X's performance simply by looking at the specs. Luckily, we have benchmarks for that. We started with our usual weapon of choice, Antutu benchmark. We ran the benchmark a total of 10 times in different situations and recorded the results. Scores ranged from just over 18,000 to just over 19,000. Our final average score was 18,676. It seems that Motorola is doing something right with their X8 system. The combination of the Adreno 320 GPU and the 720p resolution led to similarly impressive performance in Epic Citadel. We ran the benchmark in all 3 quality modes. Ultra high quality ran at an average frame rate of 58.8 frames per second, while high quality ran at 58.9 frames per second. Finally, and unsurprisingly, the high performance mode ran at 59.4 frames per second. Real-world use proved to be similar. Scrolling through home screens and the app drawer was always smooth. While viewers of our first impression video were quick to catch the lag while using the Google Play Music app, others pointed out that this happens on pretty much any phone out there, even those with higher specs. Gaming performance was excellent. I tried a few titles like Real Racing 3 and Shadowgun Dead Zone, and both ran without a single hitch. The Moto X runs Android 4.2.2, and plenty of our viewers will be very pleased to know that this is stock Android just with interface enhancements from Motorola. What interface enhancements, you ask? Well, there's active display, which we already talked about, and touchless control, which a lot of you probably already know as Google Now. It may not sound like a big deal, and I didn't think it was at first, but being able to say, "Okay, Google Now," and have the phone light up from across the room can be very handy. Between active display notifications and touchless control, I'm already beginning to hate having to use the power button on other phones. Whether or not there's any bloatware installed will depend on which carrier you use. My review unit uses Verizon, so my Verizon Mobile, Verizon Tones, and VZ Navigator are installed alongside Quick Office. No matter which carrier you use, Motorola's Assist app is included, which includes modes and settings for if you're driving, sleeping, or currently in a meeting. I'm not sure I'd use it very often, but it certainly doesn't get in the way, and I'm sure a lot of people will like it. There's been a lot of talk surrounding the clear pixel camera in the Moto X and the fact that it uses an RGBC sensor that adds additional light information not present in a standard RGB Bayer sensor. In practice, well, it's hit and miss. The RGBC sensor is supposed to improve low-light photography, and I noticed that photos taken in low-light situations were definitely brighter than expected. That said, there was still noticeable visual noise in a lot of the shots I took, to the point where it looked like somebody took a dark photo and just cranked up the brightness. On the other hand, the 10-megapixel camera in the Moto X can take some very nice photos. Many of the shots I took had very crisp detail without that over-sharp look that many modern smartphone cameras can have. The camera UI is definitely worth mentioning as, well, there really isn't one most of the time, and it's great. You can use a twisting gesture to launch the camera app. Taking a photo is done by tapping anywhere on the screen. To access finer controls, swipe to the right, and to access the gallery, swipe to the left. Very nice. Like any modern smartphone worth its salt, the Moto X shoots 1080p video. It's usable, but both the auto brightness and autofocus are way too aggressive, and the artifacting present in still photos is noticeable here as well. I was skeptical at first when Motorola claimed that the Moto X could get up to 24 hours of use given the 2200 mAh battery, but from what I've seen, they could even have been playing it safe. I had the phone on without charging at all for 2 days, and though this included standby time, I was heavily benchmarking, testing gaming performance, and generally putting the phone through its paces quite a bit during that time. It's a good thing the battery life is so good, as the battery isn't replaceable. In order to keep the size down while maintaining the rounded shape on the back of the Moto X, Motorola needed to use a specially shaped battery. Luckily, you shouldn't have to worry about carrying a spare. Overall, the Moto X is a very solid release that focuses more on what the phone actually does than just providing the specs and focusing on what it could do. At $199 with a 2-year contract, is it worth the price? Absolutely. Is everyone going to agree with that statement? Not a chance. We've got a written companion to this video at AndroidAuthority.com. You can find the link down in the description. Now, we're not even close to done with the Moto X, so if you want to see more on its features or how it stacks up against other phones, make sure to stay tuned. I am Chris Wook for Android Authority, and as always, thank you for watching.